Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for watching. My kid was on the computer, Mark. Hi, Mark. Um, we're going to talk about Tesla Dojo, and I thought it was funny that for what was for me this morning, there was all this news leading up the night before the night before Friday that Tesla Dojo. Bloomberg had a story. There was a lot of panic in the Tesla community. Oh no, Dojo's dead. This is terrible for Tesla. And the stock went up in the morning by 2% and ended the day, I think, up 3%. So we're going to talk about Dojo. We're going to talk about some other good Tesla news. This is not bad news. Dojo is not bad news. And we're going to talk about a secretive AI startup that is connected to Tesla and Dojo. And that's going to be the second part of this live stream. So, and thank you to Mark for moderating the chat. He's always moderating the chat. And there was a Martin in the chat who was calling me the king of BS, and Martin is no longer in the chat. Some feature of YouTube allows me to get rid of harassing commenters. So, the first thing I want to start with one piece of good news about Tesla before we dive into the Dojo story. A couple good pieces of good news. So Raj is a Tesla employee, and he said, order now to avoid end of quarter delivery delays and get the vehicle your family loves on time. Configurator updates coming. Custom orders may take 1 to 2 weeks longer in many locations. No end of quarter discounts per DMs. Now, I believe this is driven by the end of the tax credit. This is in the United States, and I believe this is driven by the end of US tax credits at the end of Q3, which is the end of September. And the other detail is Tesla increased the starting lease price in the US for the Model Y long range rear wheel drive, $50 a month more. This is the one that has like startlingly long range for an SUV with a high frontal surface area. Like the aerodynamics, I don't think it should make sense for this vehicle to get as much. I think it's around 350 miles range. It's like it shouldn't be getting that much, but it does. Okay. And I also heard from someone on X that I follow, maybe it was JC Christopher, I forget who it was, who said that there's almost no inventory of Model Y available within 200 miles of where he lives. Something along those lines, that there's not a lot of Tesla Model Y inventory available. So new Model Y appears to be selling very well. And as a result, Tesla is raising price. Now, what we think is going to happen is at the end of the quarter, they're going to announce the next, not the next, the more affordable model, which I think we don't really know what it's going to be. I think it's going to be a shorter, smaller Model Y. That's been my prediction all along. Some people think it's just going to be a stripped down Model Y, no rear screens, no rear screen and no glass roof and a few other things to save cost. I don't think you can save enough cost if that's what you do. So I think they're going to do more to save cost by making the vehicle shorter, maybe a little shorter in length and shorter in height a little bit. Probably the same width, but we're going to find out. But they have pretty much said that the more affordable model was pushed to Q4 to allow for the tax credit to run out on new Model Y, and then they'll have a lower cost model. And I think we're going to see that worldwide. And we know there's also, I think we know that there's a 6-seat, a longer Model Y called the Model YL coming in Shanghai in China, might be coming to the US too, and we should hear about that in Q4. Hello to Matt, hello to King Christopher Paul, and hello to Rich Leap. Thanks everybody for joining the chat. One other, I don't know if I'd call this good news or just interesting news. Yoon Tasai is on the Autopilot team, the Tesla Autopilot. He's an AI engineer. So he follows me a little. He'll occasionally like a post or whatever. I don't know if he's ever replied, but I follow him closely. I follow everybody I can from Tesla, X, SpaceX, etc. So he says, one of the most common questions from job applicants I got was, could I focus on my PhD research? And that's not why you're coming to Tesla. You're not coming to Tesla to focus on your PhD research. PhD graduates love their thesis so much they use it as hammers for every single problem, then utterly fail in building a product. This is what I think is the important part. That's why it's highlighted. The culture in our team is that it does not matter how many papers have been published. A person needs to go and do at least one graveyard shift, work through the middle of the night, and or be on the field to understand the problems. Otherwise, it's likely to solve the wrong problem or wrong priority. It's a big thing for Elon is you got to be driving the cars. You got to, if you're on the FSD team, you got to be driving FSD. You got to be supervising FSD yourself. If you are making cars, you got to be driving the cars that you're making. Lars is notorious for driving Teslas. Elon drives Teslas. You've got to drive them so you experience what they are. So when people complain about a problem or you notice a problem, you can help fix it. If you're an engineer on the team, you should be using the product. And it's a very common criticism Elon has of like CEOs, like if you're not using your own product, how do you know it is? And a really good example of this is the EV charging networks here in Thailand are terrible. And that's because the people who run the companies have drivers and they're probably riding around in gas cars. The EV charging networks are, a lot of them are in gas stations. And the gas station companies, PTT is like the prime example that I'm thinking of. The executives of that company they probably don't even drive, right? And I'm sure they don't drive. They have a driver. And whether it's a gas car or EV, it's not their problem charging. So, and Elon said this post from Yoon was on target, and that's why it came on my radar more. So I want to talk about Dojo. First of all, if we go back to, do I have it here? I don't know if I have that post here. In the Q2 earnings call, Elon talked about that the AI6 chip. So right now, Cybercabs, the new Model Y, any new car that Tesla is selling right now has an AI4 chip, formerly known as Hardware 4. Coming soon, I think sometime next year, maybe early next year, maybe late next year. I think it goes into volume production early next year. Is the AI5 chip, which is like 10 times more powerful than the AI4 chip that's in our cars now. And then further down the road, so we're probably thinking 2027, 2028, there's the AI6 chip coming, which is going to be significantly better than the AI5 chip. And this has been Tesla's pattern, that they've got the chip that they're using, they've got the next chip coming that they're getting ready to produce, and they're hammering out final details. And they have the basic idea of the chip after that. They may even go one more than that. They need to ride the bus to understand the people who need transport service. Mark is very obsessed with his own personal situation. So Elon posted that, and he talked about in the Q2 earnings call that the AI6 chip would probably be Dojo 3, that they would put 512 AI6 chips on a board, and that would be the basics of the Dojo. Because what they had been doing with Dojo is a specialized chip for AI training compute. And Dojo 1 is up and running. It's unclear, Tesla, the Bloomberg announced that Tesla was canning Dojo, and it's not really clear if they're completely canning Dojo, because there's a bunch of stuff I'm going to show you here. The reality is that Tesla is not dependent on Dojo. They're largely dependent on NVIDIA for AI training compute. Dojo is for training. The Hardware 4 chip or AI4 chip that's in the cars, it's going in Optimus. The AI5 chip that's coming, the AI6 chip, they're primarily designed for inference. Inference drives the car based on instructions received from the training compute. So something like 90% of AI compute is inference. So the inference chip is a lot more important than the AI training compute chip. So Elon, the idea with Dojo was, NVIDIA is great, but we need a backup plan. And I think they now have a backup plan with AMD, and they also have a backup plan with using the AI5 and AI6 chips on a board here to do that. They'll be adequate to do training as needed. So in the earnings call, he said that he thought AI6 and Dojo 3 would converge. And then 2 weeks later, Bloomberg reports with some questionability that you're going to see here that Dojo's dead. So what he says here, the Tesla AI5 and AI6 and subsequent chips, so they're thinking farther down the road than AI6, will be excellent for inference, which is the most important thing because it's the most volume of AI compute, and at least pretty good for training. And all effort is now focused. They're not dividing their resources on 2 different AI chip designs. They're focusing all their resources. I think what he's saying here, they're focusing all effort on the AI5 and AI6 chips. That will be pretty good for training. And the key distinction here is NVIDIA is getting like an 80% profit margin. So if you can come up with a pretty good chip that's low cost and you don't have to pay profit margin to NVIDIA, it might not be as good as NVIDIA's chip. But if it's 50% as good as NVIDIA's chip, but you're paying 20% of the price, then you just do a lot more chips and you get a lot more compute for less money. So Elon says in a supercomputer cluster, which is the training compute cluster, it would make sense to put many AI5, AI6 chips on a board, whether for inference or training. They do inference work and the cluster as well when they're to like prepare for training. Simply to reduce network cabling complexity and cost by a few orders of magnitude. That's a lot. 1 order of magnitude is 10, 2 orders of magnitude is 100, 3 orders of magnitude is 1,000. If it's reducing the complexity and cost by a few orders of magnitude, that may be more cost effective than having a fancy high-end chip. So there are reasons why they're going in this direction. So let's get a little bit more here. So now this is where you get into the wait, is Dojo really dead? So Ashwin says Dojo didn't flop. There would not be a tape out plan for Dojo 2 otherwise. It's made a major paradigm shift in chip design and packaging. So in other words, it may be, and Elon said this post was on target. So maybe Dojo 2 is still coming, because he said that Dojo 2 is still coming, and then Bloomberg reports that Dojo 2 is dead, that Dojo is dead, and Elon sort of affirmed that story by responding to some other people, but now he's responding to this guy. There would not be a tape-out plan for Dojo 2 otherwise. Maybe Dojo 2 is going forward. It's not going to scale, right, which was never really the intent. The intent was to scale Dojo 3, but it may be enough for 100,000 H100 GPU equivalents. Major paradigm in chip design and packaging driven by use of chiplets, smaller chips inside of a package like Lego pieces. A single chiplet can be used for inference with small memory. Multiple copies of the same chiplets lapped with high bandwidth memory and network interfaces could be used for training, saving costs and complexity. This is what Elon said in the other slide I showed you. Ultimately, it's the performance per dollar that needs to be maximized, and the dollar portion comes to design and tape-out costs. By reusing the same design for both, Tesla's significantly reducing these costs. The cost of the inference chiplet is now amortized across the millions of cars running inference, plus the hundreds of thousands of training nodes. So smart move to reduce total cost of ownership for all necessary. He didn't even mention that you're saving on NVIDIA's profit margin. With this model, it's quite possible that Dojo 3 will be ahead on performance per dollar versus NVIDIA, even if raw training performance is slightly behind. Again, if NVIDIA is getting an 8% profit margin and your 50% is good, but you're only paying 20% of the price, you just do a lot more chips and you have a lot more compute. So JD says Cybercab might be with AI5. I think that Cybercab will start with AI4 because they're already running AI4 in the prototypes. They don't have enough AI5s, I don't think, to run prototype Cybercabs with AI5. And then once they're manufacturing the AI5 in scale, or once Samsung or whoever is making AI5 at scale, no, I think it's TSMC is making AI5, then they'll convert Cybercab over to AI5 and they'll convert other cars over to AI5. And, they're going to have to train AI5 to catch up to where AI4 is. Just because you have a new chip doesn't mean it's better. You have to go through training to get better. Seems more like Dojo is the people, with all the people behind Dojo are gone. We don't know how many of the Dojo people actually left. We know what Bloomberg reported, but we don't know how accurate that is, and we don't know how many people are left. Mr. Sith says Elon wants each robot to learn, so it needs an inference and training chip. No. I don't think Elon has said that they're going to have training on the bot, or a training in the car. I don't think that's the plan. That training is done with very, very large volumes of chips, not with 1 or 2 chips in the car. Maybe they will use Dojo 2 for Optimus prototypes. No, Dojo 2 will be used for training. It'll be basically serving the role of NVIDIA H100s in Cortex 2. Maybe, I think it's already, probably in Cortex 2. We'll see about that. Okay, so now another thing that Elon responded, I'm going to show you more detail on this later. You can see Elon responded to this when Elon disclosed plans for the AI6 chip, making it clear before convergence architecture, clear major changes. So let me show you the full post that this is about so it's easier to read. This is Phil. Phil says AI6 is now Dojo when Elon disclosed plans. So I think AI6 is Dojo 3. That doesn't mean it's Dojo 2. It's unclear, but it may be that Dojo 2 is still coming. Not a huge factor in Tesla's plans, but Dojo 2 is still coming for training compute. When Elon remarked that it would be the convergence architecture, that AI6 would converge with Dojo, it was clear major changes were coming to Dojo. Dojo is Tesla's AI training supercomputer. It is not inference compute. You don't put the Dojo chip in the car. It uses way too much power. It's not appropriate for a car. built around a custom chip known as the D1. The D1 and AI5, AI6 share many core design elements, particularly the math operations used in neural networks, matrix multiplication, and highly parallel processing, which is all GPUs. Dojo had a unique feature, chips arranged in a 5x5 grid using a system-on-wafer design with etched interconnects, enabling high-speed data transfer. In a sense, Dojo will live on as the generalized AI6. Going forward, all efforts will focus on AI6. And I think Elon said this was on target, but Elon's still talking about AI5, that AI5 chips may also go on these boards and serve a similar role. So that it's not quite that simple. Now, there was a question. Omar said it's too bad Dojo flopped. Didn't necessarily flop, as we saw earlier. A Human 123 says it's the right call. Why do you need two different hardware when all you do is matrix multiplication? Which is what Phil said. AI chips are AI6 chips or whatever, AI5 chips, whatever, in production. Every single Tesla car, just keep making them better. And Elon's going to respond to this. Falcon Heavy Y Booster says one does back propagation, one doesn't. So the training involves what's called back propagation. It's a step in how these, you have nodes that are simulating the neurons in your brain, and you learn by, it's too hard to explain back propagation, and let's be fair, I probably don't understand it as well as I should. So he's saying it doesn't do back propagation. One needs hypervision variables, one doesn't. One has inputs, entire training set. So Elon says block quantization can be used to achieve high precision for back propagation. So you can use the inference hardware, the AI5 and AI6 hardware, to do back propagation, which is the training. It's a critical element of the training. So let me check. Okay, yeah, thank you, LJ. Please hit the like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe. Okay. I think I already covered that one. I'm going to cover some other bits, and then we're going to get into the secret AI startup, Density AI, and what's going on with that, and what are the connections to Dojo, and what does that mean for the future. So, CERN Basher, who he's like basically my clone, only I'm his clone, he's my clone. I don't know. We both have beautiful wives. We both have very similar opinions on the future of Tesla. He says, could this be the version? Elon says the FSD software update next month will be a major step change improvement for rare conditions. CERN Basher says, could this be the version that allows the safety monitors to come out? That's in Austin. You have guys sitting in the passenger seat who have some role in making sure the car does what it does properly. So Elon says this will substantially reduce the need for driver attention, but some complex intersections, heavy weather, unusual events will still require attention. I think Elon is talking here not about the Robotaxi vehicle. He's talking about the cars that regular people have. Note the Austin Robotaxi FSD build is 6 months more advanced than what's available in cars in America, and there are some additional breakthroughs in Tesla AI that will make the car feel eerily human. So we don't know. Does that mean that the regular cars are getting similar software to what the Robotaxi vehicles have? But Elon is saying it's not quite there yet. You need driver attention. You still need some driver attention for complex intersections, heavy weather, unusual events. So we're not, he's identifying these are the hurdles we need to get to where we can pull the safety monitors out, we can pull the safety drivers out. You can sit in the back seat of your car and let the car drive. He thinks he's getting closer and closer to unsupervised. But we're not at unsupervised if you have complex intersections, heavy weather, unusual events require the driver's attention. So, and then stepping away from Tesla for a minute, we're going to come back to Tesla in a minute. Apparently, I have a lot of water bottles back there. The tap water in Thailand is not drinkable, so bottled water is a huge industry. Elon says, tell your friends, or John from Tesla Owner Silicon Valley. Excuse me. John from Tesla Owner Silicon Valley says, tell your friends about Grok Imagine. It's a game changer. It's available in iOS and Android. I'm not sure if it's working fully in Android yet. And Elon says it's really fun. So I'm going to show you, there's a new feature where you see an image on X. If you have Grok Imagine, which I think maybe everybody does, you long press on it, you get an option to make a video. So this is an image that I posted previously of my car getting washed. And the very beginning of this clip was what happened. And then these guys come along and, the guys start moving. So this is what the image looks like at the very beginning, I should say, like right here. And one thing to notice is look at the headlights. These are new Model Y headlights. But when I converted it to a video by using Grok Imagine, watch what happens to the headlights. It's no longer a new Model Y. Now it's got the old Model Y headlights. Did you see that? I'll do it one more time. But the guy was sitting still, and all of a sudden these guys are moving around. It converted a still image into a video. And I just want to say, this is a Toyota in the background. I think, yeah. There's a couple of BYDs around it, but I don't think you see them in this picture. Can you see the BYDs? No, I guess not. Okay, so that's a cool feature. Grok's doing a lot of interesting stuff. XAI is doing a lot of interesting stuff. Now, I want to talk about when Bloomberg did their story. They mentioned that Ganesh Venkataraman, who was like the Dojo guy when they first introduced Dojo, Ganesh left in like 2023. Like, why is Ganesh leaving? What's going on with Dojo? And Dojo continued along. Sometime in 2024, Ganesh got involved with an AI startup in stealth, quote, quote. We are hiring AI startup in stealth as leading the charge in the development of high-performance, scalable, and secure data center infrastructure solutions, mission-critical technologies to enterprises, pushing the boundaries of what's possible. In large-scale distributed systems, we are seeking highly skilled engineers to join our team, contribute to the design development of innovative hardware and software solutions for AI. So the guy who headed Tesla Dojo has an AI startup, and according to Bloomberg, a bunch of the engineers left the Dojo team and went to an AI startup called Density AI, which had an address in Palo Alto, which, if you know, Tesla's AI team was based in Palo Alto, and this is the address in Palo Alto, so it's like a mailboxes, etc., or something like that. And it's a Delaware corporation that was incorporated in April 2024. So I think this is significant, and this may be a stealth startup connected to Tesla. Ganesh left. He's starting up an AI startup. A bunch of the Dojo team leaves and joins Ganesh's AI startup. Is this a backup plan for Tesla? Are they developing, in other words, Tesla's no longer developing Dojo, but maybe Ganesh and some of the Tesla AI team is developing Dojo. And who would be the biggest customer for this if it works out? And are they able to raise capital? Now, I went to Crunchbase when I was looking into this, and as far as I can tell, Density AI has not had any public funding. It doesn't mean they aren't funded. And one of the questions I wonder about is it possible that Elon invested in this company? It's possible. Where is this AI startup getting its money? Now, maybe Ganesh talked to Steve Jurvetson. Maybe they just have an angel investor who's helping them out, and it's not in Crunchbase yet. I don't think Ganesh had enough to self-fund this. So somebody's funding a startup that appears to be taking on what Dojo was doing. So it's not that Dojo is incapable of doing what they need to do. It's that Elon doesn't want the team divided into inference chips. And like Elon's making a bet within Tesla that the future is inference hardware that can also do training. Ganesh is making the bet, no, we can make really awesome training compute. And if we don't have the hassles of being part of a large company, maybe we can bring in some great engineers to help develop this new hardware that we've been working on. And, the intention of Dojo was the kind of training for real world AI that the largest consumer for is Tesla. Yes, it's Dojo underground. Sure, it's Dojo in a boring company tunnel. So, all right. So I just wanted to cover that point. I got a little bit more left to cover here, but I'm looking at the chat. Do I think these new chips will be easily upgradable with older chip models, a plug and play between AI 4 to AI 5 and so on? No, not easily upgradable. I think that the power requirement on AI 5 is substantially larger than the power requirement on AI 4. Which is, I think, larger than AI 3, with hardware 3. I think there's an open question. If they, I'm not sure that they're going to up. Elon did say we're probably going to have to upgrade the hardware cars. Ashok wasn't so sure, and I think Ashok has at least one other time said we're going to get AI4 working well on Robotaxi, so it goes to unsupervised. And then one of the projects is going to be go back and see, can we take this model and run it on a hardware 3? And I think Ashok thinks it will work. So the hardware 3 cars won't get an upgrade. But suppose they get unsupervised working on AI4, what's in the current cars. They go back to the hardware 3 cars and they try to make it work to see if they can get unsupervised working on the hardware 3 cars. And it doesn't. By the time they figure out they can't make it happen, maybe the AI5 hardware is ready and maybe the hardware 3 cars are upgraded to AI5. And now the AI4 car owners are jealous of the AI3 owners getting AI5. That could be fun to watch. So I don't think it's intended to be plug and play. I think there's going to be issues with it, but we'll see. Oh, thank you, Inbound CX, for the color comment. Got to go back and summarize all of Elon's. Yeah. That's basically my job, Javi. I think I do more than that, but LJ says, Warren, why Tesla Bull suddenly all obsessed about Tesla advertising again? Yeah, they just raised prices. There's no Model Ys in inventory, and they haven't advertised. Explain that one to me. No, actually, let me share that. I think this will address that point well. Stop bitching, stop moaning, stop groaning, stop complaining, stop whining, stop worrying, stop grumbling, stop screaming, stop belly aching, stop hating, stop shitting, stop crying, stop quitting, stop yelling, stop protesting, stop bearing, stop disapproving, stop yelling, and let Tesla and Elon cook. You will be happy. And Elon said, I think so. There's so many people who think they know how to run Tesla better than the Tesla team, and they're wrong. They don't know how to run the Tesla better than the Tesla team does. Don't they realize once Robotaxi is near perfected in existence, the software of FSD will speak for itself? I would say once Robotaxi is unsupervised and running at scale, or starting to run at scale, selling cars will be irrelevant. I don't think people appreciate this. Once Tesla can run a Robotaxi and make $500,000 in gross profit over the lifetime of the vehicle, why the hell are they selling you a car for $50,000? Why are they selling me a car for $50,000? They can make $500,000 on the car. Why would they sell it to me for $50,000? Why would they sell it to you for $50,000? The game's going to completely change when unsupervised goes live, and gets a reasonably broad geographic spread of regulatory approval. Jay Chemo says, I'm wondering if Tesla will still sell to private owners in the future. That's what we're talking about. Much more profit in a Robotaxi vehicle. Exactly what I just said. Marty Party says the best ad ever will be watching a driverless Y scoot by you on the street. Yeah, I think that's already true. I think it's massively underestimated how much people already want a Tesla, and it's simply an affordability problem right now, and it won't be relevant in the future because Robotaxi affordability will be way more affordable than Uber. Hopefully Tesla invested, not Elon. No. Well, it's an interesting theory. I don't think Tesla would have invested in this startup. I think Elon might have helped fund it. It's possible that Elon just, Ganesh, I see what you're doing. I think this is a good idea. Let's help you out. Maybe. Can Tesla terminate hypothetical non-competes? I think if you let somebody go, then I don't think the non-compete exists if you fire someone, unless you give them severance package and it goes with the severance package. And also California is very restrictive on non-competes. They don't really allow non-compete clauses. How often do they invent a new updated supercomputer? All the time. Updating supercomputers all the time. Hello, Renee. Random Dude says, would staging areas be needed for the cybercabs for charging and cleaning? Would buying or partnering with Hertz make sense? I do think something like partnering with rental companies might make sense. But I think the short answer is, I picked my picture, and I'm not saying I'm correct, is that Robotaxi, cybercabs, and others will run from roughly 6 a.m. to midnight delivering rides. Now, maybe there'll be a trickle before 6 a.m. and some after midnight, especially on, Friday and Saturday nights. But the vast majority of Robotaxi rides will be from 6 a.m. to midnight. And from midnight to 6 a.m., the Robotaxis will charge. And they're probably going to have a wireless charging setup that will charge the car in 1 to 2 hours. And they'll have superchargers as well. And maybe they'll have an Optimus at the superchargers to plug them in. Maybe they'll have humans to plug them in. and they will simply go to the wire, and they'll just buy a parking garage and put a bunch of wireless chargers in, and I don't think that's a huge problem. And then the cleaning part, they have a cleaning robot. They've already like shown a cleaning robot for Cybercab. But I do think that Hertz, they have operations for cleaning. They have space where you could put charging. So Hertz or other rental car companies could be a good partner. I don't know that Tesla wants to share the profit with someone else, but it might make sense. Mark says Ark Invest Futurist said you have 6 months to buy a new Model Y. New ones will be converted. 6 months is a little optimistic on unsupervised robotaxi going to scale, because I think you need regulatory approval in a large area. So I think you're going to have regulatory approval in Texas pretty quickly. I think you're going to have regulatory approval in at least some of California, maybe all of California, and Florida. We'll see. I don't know when they're going to go to Florida. I think Florida's coming. I think Nevada's coming. If you get regulatory approval in California, Nevada, California, Texas, and Florida, it's like 30% of the U.S. population. So add in Nevada and a few other states, it's like, I think you probably, the production of robotaxis in the United States, of Model Ys and Model 3s, it might all go into robotaxi for a while. Because I think that the volume of robotaxis you need to serve the United States is 10 million, and it's going to take them a long time to make that. So it's an interesting process, and I'm sure they have a plan. I'm sure they're ready to adapt their plan as needed. Do I think the monthly fee for FSD will change? If so, up or down? I think the monthly fee for FSD is going to go up a lot. I think, I think the issue is, how will Tesla incentivize you to put your Tesla into the robotaxi network? And they don't need you to have FSD when you drive personally. They can have FSD in the car, the unsupervised FSD in the car, just for the robotaxi service. And when you're driving yourself, you might not have it. But what price do you need? How much money do you need to make to take your personal car and put it in the robotaxi network? I don't know the answer to that question. How much will be necessary? Do they need our cars in the robotaxi network? I'm not sure they do. What will this do to our stock prices? What will do at our stock prices? When robotaxi unsupervised goes live, I think the stock price goes crazy, but we'll see. When it goes unsupervised live, at scale, when you start seeing it scale. But, how long does it take for the market to recognize it? Sometime, hopefully by the end of this year, but probably sometime next year. Question: theoretically, if Tesla decides to invest in XAI, will it mean a drop in Tesla stock short term? I don't make short term stock price predictions. I don't claim to understand how short term stock prices move. I don't know why. I don't think it's the right move for Tesla, because it ties up. When you invest in a company like XAI, it's illiquid. You can't easily sell it and get cash out. That's not typically what companies do with their cash pile. And Tesla needs their cash pile to insulate against challenges in the economy, and they need their cash pile for CapEx for Tesla's business. Why is Tesla making AI 6 if AI 5 is not in cars yet? They talked about this when they announced the hardware 3, that they have a cycle where they're working, and partly it's like, the current car is maybe on a 7 nanometer chip manufacturing site, and then the hardware AI 5 might be on 5 nanometer, and then they have plans for when 3 nanometer lithography is available in the future, and that's what the AI 6 is going to be. They're planning ahead 3-4 years ahead on their product cycle for these chips. You want new chips as quickly as possible. You want to upgrade your hardware as quickly as possible, with cost in mind. I think in 2026, Tesla vehicle prices will skyrocket, probably adding another $50,000. It's hard to say. Will FSD drive up the price of Tesla cars? Like, my theory is they're just not going to bother selling cars at some point. How long does it take them to get to that point? I don't know. Do I think Tesla? Dojo Super Hybrid 3 chip. Sure. Do I think that Tesla will form a robotaxi shell company to run the network and give sales credits to Tesla? So somebody said they saw a filing of like a Tesla Robotaxi LLC. I think I've had this vision for a while that if Tesla truly becomes dominant in the transportation industry, between Robotaxi and the company just grows in other ways, and you got, I could see Tesla dividing itself. Like you're, what's going to happen is if you become very powerful and the government sues you to try to split you up. So why not split up in advance? So Tesla Energy becomes its own company, and the Tesla Robotaxi network becomes its own company, and Tesla vehicle manufacturing is its own company, and Optimus is its own company. Like I could see that path. I'm not saying that is the path. I'm saying I could see that. Really hard to know what the plan is there. Elon talks about Tesla becoming a $30 trillion company. That's everything staying in house. Do I have thoughts on Bitcoin? No. I think that I have many thoughts on Bitcoin. I don't have short-term, medium-term, long-term predictions on what's going to happen with Bitcoin. My personal thought is that I liked Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency. I don't like it as an investment or an asset. Not saying it's not a good investment or asset. It's the purpose of Bitcoin was to be a currency, not to be an investment. That's what Satoshi wanted, and I think they've gotten away from what the intent was. 50,000 semis next year. I think they'll be at a run rate of 50,000 semis by the end of next year, and that may be a little optimistic. I don't know how quickly they'll be able to ramp it. I don't think the factory's complete yet. If they get the factory complete by the end of the year, you would typically expect an 18-month ramp. Maybe they'll get to a 12-month ramp, and in that case, they'd be at 50K semis run rate by the end of next year, not total semis produced by the next year. I don't have thoughts on XRP or any other cryptocurrencies. I think that maybe there's room for a few. I just don't know. I don't know how the cryptocurrency world, crypto asset world plays out. It's hard for me to. I understand the technology better than most people because I was using cryptography, public key cryptography, back in like the 80s. But Robotaxi hubs will also serve as a giant mega pack, helping the grid as a data center after data centers spool up. I don't know about as a mega pack. No, I don't. I think the cars will charge their batteries and discharge their batteries as vehicles and not serve as vehicle to grid type service. They might serve when they're dormant or not driving. They might serve as inference compute. It's like an AI on the cloud situation. Mark says Tesla is fast at turning an investment into a profit maker. I don't know about fast. Sometimes they are. David Britt says there's no way that Elon would invest in a company incorporated. I wouldn't say there's no way that Elon would invest in a company incorporated in Delaware. It is iffy. Let's go back to that. This is the California filing that it's a Delaware stock corporation out of state. That's from 2024. And then this is the Delaware filing. And then I think that, the statement of info due date was overdue. So I don't know what's going on there. I looked at this just a few days ago. Didn't Elon say that the quality of the chips inside of Dojo, sorry, I wanted to go with this one. Didn't Elon say that the quality of the chips inside of Dojo had a few issues affecting the compute that they were going to get ironed out? I don't remember that. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I don't remember it. David says also Kimball Musk has stated that the brothers had a relationship with the Hertz board since the Zip 2 days. I don't know that that's a driving factor. Do they end up working with Hertz? I think it would make sense, but that doesn't mean it's the right choice, and that's a business decision they'll make when they get there. How much will government tax Optimus? I think that the greatest threat to the future of humanity is and always has been government. Government will find ways to make everything more difficult. Government will find ways to make everything more expensive. I think Optimus and Robotaxi will be much more successful in China than they will in the US, even though the ride prices are higher in the US, because government will get in the way repeatedly and difficult in the United States, state governments, whatever. And China will be full steam ahead. Let's make this thing amazing. That's my prediction. I could be wrong. Marty Party says, gotta think that once safety monitors exit Tesla vehicles in Texas and things are running smooth, another company will license FSD. Yes, but when a car company licenses FSD, they have to adapt their cars to the hardware. And like the US, like Legacy Auto will take 2 or 3 years to be able to make that work. BYD is my prediction for the first company that licenses FSD because they're already a Tesla partner and they can move quicker. LJ says Warren went with my son to receive Model 3 yesterday. They said all the Ys almost sold out too. Yeah, I'm hearing that from multiple sources. John Buchanan says I Optimus movie after becoming self-aware. I guess Grok will write the script and animate the Optimus movie. Sure. Mile Arasowski says maybe the Hardware 3 will get discount to upgrade to Hardware 4 in Q4, Q1. I don't think you're going to see Hardware 4 get an upgrade anytime soon. I think you're talking 2026 at the earliest, and probably not early 2026. Well, I would guess middle of 2026 at best. Will additional factories be needed to meet the Robotaxi demand? How many? So I think the plan is once they get unsupervised Robotaxi up and running to start producing cybercabs at scale. So we know Giga Texas is going to be producing cybercabs. Probably Giga Shanghai will be producing cybercabs. And is it going to be in the existing factory? Are they going to build a new factory? I don't know. They've said half the footprint, twice the volume. I think they're looking for smaller footprint factories that are very, very high velocity and able to produce 2 million vehicles a year despite being a small footprint. So my prediction is you'll see 4 cybercab factories around the world, at least in the medium term, producing 8 million robotaxis a year, plus the 2 million or so you get from Model Y and Model 3. And at 10 million units a year, you get to scale your robotaxi network pretty quickly. Then the I don't think the FSD license avalanche is that big of a deal. I think other car companies are going to have difficulty adapting. I think other car companies get put out of business. But Chris says, when Optimus becomes sentient, do you think they will allow them in Congress? That's a little out there. John only subscriber chat here. I have no idea what that means. What does that mean? Only subscriber chat here. Okay. So I think we've covered everything I wanted to cover. I don't see much more in the chat. I would just say keep your eyes out and look for like Crunchbase. We'll see if Crunchbase announces any kind of funding for, because it's so easy for AI startups to raise money, and this one has so much credibility that I think an AI startup that is developing the hardware for training compute, and the profit margins of NVIDIA are 80%. So if you come in with something that's you're making 40% margin and you're competitive, that's a good business model. Marty Party says, why isn't Tesla exporting Cybertrucks to China and Japan? Tesla could easily double sales if they exported. Japan is not a market for a Cybertruck. No pickup trucks in Japan. I don't think China has a lot of pickup trucks. I'm in Thailand. Thailand is a market for Cybertruck. The problem is that outside of North America, the few markets that do buy pickup trucks, Australia, Thailand, Malaysia, they buy Ford Ranger size pickups, not F-150 size pickups. So, and the price, like you can buy a Ford Ranger, like a pretty nice Ford Ranger here for maybe a little more than $20,000. So Cybertruck's like an $80,000 vehicle. The market just isn't that big in most of the rest of the world for $80,000 large pickups. So they would have to probably come up with a smaller one. And I just don't think that's going to be a focus for Tesla. And also, like in Japan and Thailand, you need the steering wheel on the other side. I think Tesla can do that, but there's an engineering work involved in that. Mark says, as we destroy the competition, we will have more believers. Yeah, well, I'm not worried about having more believers. Most people believe, they just don't think about it. Ronald says Asia likes compact trucks, large majority. So even in Asia, most countries don't do pickups much. It's Thailand and Malaysia and then Australia that are the reasonably large markets for pickups at all. And outside of those two, I don't even think you see many in Vietnam. LJ says, any guess on when a refresh Cybertruck might appear on the rise? Refresh Cybertruck? It's practically brand new. You don't refresh a vehicle for 3, 4, 5 years. Chris says in Australia, range is the big issue. No, it isn't. There's enough range. That's the typical, person who wants to be able to tow their boat 200 miles, which is like, 1% of the pickup truck market, but they think they're 90% of the pickup truck market. Plenty of range in Cybertruck for soccer moms who want to take their kids places. Easily half and probably 75% of pickup truck drivers, Cybertruck has plenty of range. Must be bedtime in Thailand now. Go make some babies. It is 9:43 p.m. and I will probably get ready for bed soon. We're making progress. I can now wear my Tesla t-shirt out in public without fear of retribution. I don't know about without fear. I don't worry about it. I wear Tesla stuff all the time, but I'm not in the US. I'm not in a woke country. I'm in Thailand. They're not woke here. Any news on the pod car? So the update on the pod car is my wife is opening, and I'm helping. My wife is opening a cafe and co-working space called Casual Dress Co-working Cafe. And there will be a co-working space upstairs, the two upper floors. Now, I had been planning to hire young Thai engineers to help, and I didn't really have a place to have them work. And now that we're gonna have the co-working space open probably in a couple months, we already rented it. We're already starting to fit the place out, but we just barely got started because we just moved into a new house too. So once we have the co-working space up and running, we don't really have the kind of elite engineering university that I would like to have in Krabi, but there's Krabi Polytechnic or Krabi Technical College that does have automotive engineering and a couple other engineering programs. I might see if I can recruit some guys to let's see if we can build some prototypes. And Thai workers are inexpensive compared to American workers. So in theory, it's coming. But I've got a long history of not getting it done. So I think your best bet is Warren's not going to get it done. But I'm going to try to prove you wrong. John Taylor says F-150 sells 700,000 vehicles a year. Why not drop the Cybertruck price to $50,000 to compete with the base F-150? Isn't the Cybertruck profitable at $50,000? No. Cybertruck is not profitable at $50,000, even at higher volumes. I think Cybertruck is selling now for $80,000, if I'm not mistaken, and they're probably at around 15-20% margins, which means their cost of making the Cybertruck is probably in the 60s, $60,000 or more. If they get the 4680 nailed down and they make that at greater scale, maybe they're getting the battery cost down. Maybe they're figuring out other ways of getting costs down, but I think it's going to be a tough one. John says, will the co-working space have Starlink? Thailand is in the bottom 50 tech countries in the world in that Thailand does not allow Starlink yet. Philippines has had Starlink for 2 years. Thailand, I don't know what Thailand's waiting for. But the practical reality is that if you have access to wired internet, fiber in Thailand, it's much less expensive to go with fiber. So in the house that we're in now, we have 300 megabits per second up and down for $15 a month. I think Starlink's going to be $50 a month. And in the cafe, we're probably going to have 500 megabits per second up and down, or a gigabit and gigabit up and down, and that's going to be less expensive than Starlink with lower bandwidth. So I'm not saying definitely we won't have Starlink, but I don't think we need Starlink yet. And right now, Thailand doesn't allow it. So it's frustrating. And I got a message from YouTube that my stream's bitrate is lower than the recommended, and I'm not sure why my stream's bitrate is so low. I don't know if that's my code or maybe my internet connection isn't as fast as it should be, and I need to go complain to the Thai internet company and say, hey, you got to make my internet connection faster. Okay, I think we've covered everything. I think we've had a healthy chat. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank Mark for moderating the chat as usual. How many countries do not allow Starlink? About 50 countries do not allow Starlink out of 200, roughly 200. I don't know if the Thai government loves Elon. I don't know the answer to that question. So thanks everybody so much. I'm probably going to do a video in a day or two that's going to be on X Live. I'm going to try an X live stream because Herbert encouraged me to try an X live stream. So I'm going to try an X live stream, and I'll post the recording of that video on YouTube. In general, I prefer doing live streams here on YouTube. I'm going to